The length of a short film varies. Sundance Film Festival defines a short as anything up to 50 minutes, which would be classed as a short since it is only 5 minutes 9 seconds long, and no background knowledge of the narrative is needed, therefore making it an independent linear product. However, conventions of short films are generally hard to define and vary constantly according to the theme and genre established in the media product. The narrative is generally kept simple and easy to follow so that little background context of the event is needed. Feature characters are also usually developed through their actions rather than extended dialogue sequences. However, this also varies dramatically depending on the genre of the product. For example, in my short film Witch, although I used a smaller cast of only 5 people, I used in-depth dialogue extensively to connect the audience with the characters. I scripted this in the pre-production planning process and researched witchcraft in many different forms by using books, online resources, and conducting interviews. This enabled me to generate a very detailed script, allowing my characters to clearly establish the genre and portray their relationships with one another distinctly. This is unconventional of shorts, where dialogue is not commonly a main focus within the narrative. To aid my understanding of conventions within shorts, I watched and analysed pre-existing texts, such as The Diner, 2 AM, and Guilt. I focused on those that encompass thriller themes, as I knew this would inspire certain torturing and uncomfortable features that I wanted to include within my own product. There are many aspects that I wanted to develop on from these shorts, especially in relation to unconventional uses of lighting techniques and editing, such as fast-paced cuts to a black screen to reflect the panic that the antagonist is feeling, which is then projected onto the audience. These encompass certain traits that are easily related to the genre the director establishes, such as use of low-key lighting in many of the shots, creating an eerie and thrilling atmosphere, heightening anticipation. This is also reinforced through location editing and cinematography by using everyday locations such as the isolated street in Michael Evans' 2 AM. The audience is brought to relate to the characters, allowing them to fully emerge with the narrative. I decided on the forest location in my short as it reflects an ordinary, common place that the audience members could put themselves in. It also helps the audience to become emotionally attached to the protagonist, who is developed on throughout the duration of the short through use of sound, involving dialogue, score, and sound effects, which are used to develop the emotional atmosphere and make up for the shorter duration of my media product. I continue to develop on this use of sound to actively engage the audience with the narrative. The score throughout my short clearly establishes the cult thriller genre through starting off with reflective intensifying silence, which is a typical convention of this genre, to the use of diegetic sound effects such as the crows to connote death, and then to the piano and violin compositions. The sudden layering of the score in the darker scenes emphasizes the twist in narrative, from the witches being innocent to becoming inhumane psychotic antagonists. I have created a conventional score to fit in with the action throughout my short, enabling the audience to relate my product with the appropriate genre of real media products. I also referred to other texts to identify further conventions that I wanted to develop on or challenge in my media product. One of the films that inspired me was The Craft, 1996, as this also had an antagonist-based narrative by following the perspective of the Coven, causing the target audience to relate and empathise with those characters. This is a convention that I wanted to develop within my short, as I wanted to distance my project from the typical victim-based narrative, which was also inspired by The Sisterhood of Night 2015, whereby the group's perspective is also followed, and their motive is unclear throughout the duration of the film, only to be revealed at the end. Which reflects Todorov's narrative theory, stating that all narratives follow the same path. The short starts with a state of equilibrium and peace. Then, as disruption occurs when the Coven cast their first ritual, an outsider realizes that something is wrong. The outsider attempts to restore order by exposing the Coven, however is too late. My media product doesn't completely adhere to the narrative theory and becomes unconventional, as order isn't restored at the end. This enforced the dark features I wanted to achieve through manifesting the different forms of witchcraft in depth. As well as my short film, I also created 2 ancillary tasks, the film poster and review. To complete these effectively, I researched and established common conventions found within the products. Short film posters are unusual to come across and are rarely constructed. However, the conventions are commonly linked to feature film posters. I therefore analysed some existing posters that focused on a similar theme to my own product: Sinister, The Sisterhood of Night, and the Blair Witch Project, then later referred to The Craft, which contains a very similar character portrayal within the film. Through analysing these real media products, I was able to draw on conventions that I could develop on to appeal to my target audience. To do this effectively, I decided to focus on the cult conventions, such as those featured in The Craft and The Sisterhood of Night. The style of image shows their dominance and targets the right demographic through use of relationship to characters becoming immediately prominent. Therefore, I adhered to this convention and edited my cast over a vast background, which could also show their insignificance and lack of power to the magic they are invoking that holds great supernatural strength that they are now unable to control. I wanted to adhere to certain conventions of the craft to make sure I established a theme clearly. For example, the use of a tagline is a clear pointer for the genre and expectations of the product. I therefore included the tagline, "Let the darkness consume you," as I felt this provided an idea of the nature of the product. This was then reinforced through iconography, which used the pentagram symbol to represent the genre as well as linking with the mise-en-scene of my short. I also adhered to conventions such as the billing block and contract order of the cast. To prepare for producing the film review, I researched which magazines would fit my product according to the content I was aiming to include. When producing the film review, I could not be unique in the format I presented it in, as the product needed to be conventional and adhere to the forms of real film articles. I used objective, sophisticated language with a humorous tone, as well as making references to other films so that the audience would understand the representation of my own product in more depth. I also adhered to the conventional colour scheme, shapes, columns, image size, and font in comparison with the real media product. By selecting a representative image for my article of both genre and style that linked in with the content and style of writing, I was able to accurately target my audience and engage them with my media product, as well as enforcing consistency with my short and film poster.